Sham Charania of ESPN officially dropped the bombshell a little earlier today, and he said that Tom Thibodeau is out. Let's take a listen to what Sham Charania had to say in regard to the New York Knicks relieving Tom Thibodeau of his duties as head coach.
The Knicks believe that they need a new voice, someone that can take them to the next step of the organization's future, which they hope is an NBA championship. This is a team that obviously has talent. Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. They feel like they need a new voice, and that's what the decision was made today by Knicks ownership. James Dolan, Leon Rose informed Tom Thibodeau today that he has been let go as head coach.
Sham Charania of ESPN says he is out. Now, there's some people that are, including Mike, who are unhappy about this.
Shame on them. Shame on them.
I think this is the right move.
First conference final in 25 years, and you fire the guy. You finally beat the Boston Celtics. You beat their butt too. And don't give me the Tatum stuff. They were winning even if Tatum was playing. We agree on this. Did they fall short to Indiana? Yes. Colin, Indiana seemed like that team of destiny in the Eastern Conference. They walloped the Cavs, the best team in the East in the regular season, and then they beat the Knicks, who beat the big bad Celtics. I think there's levels to this. We talk about all the time in the playoffs how there are levels to this stuff. Okay, you finally beat the Celtics. Great. You proved to yourself you could beat Boston. I understand nothing is guaranteed year in and year out, and you want to take advantage of the run that you're going on the current year. And I know Knicks fans are upset that they didn't make the NBA Finals, but firing a guy who got you and your team to a place you haven't been in 25 years is a little shameful. Shame on the Knicks today. Shame on the Knicks today.
The one thing I would agree with is if you're the New York Knicks, let's think about this for a second. Isaiah Thomas didn't work out. Larry Brown did not work out. Mike D'Antoni did not work out. They had Mike Woodson, who fizzled out and exploded. Derek Fisher stunk. Jeff Hornacek did nothing for them. David Fizdale in and out before they could blink. It wasn't finally that they actually got some stability when they got Tom Thibodeau in as that job.
And I believe Theo, of Theoretically Speaking, spoke on this from 2 to 4. You're relying on the Knicks to be competent. You're relying on Dolan and Leon Rose.
Well, Rose has done a good job putting the roster together.
I understand. But all those names you just went through, and that specific spot, the head coaching spot, Thibs turned it around there. I know maybe Knick fan and people in that organization don't want to admit it. Rewind 3 years ago when they made the playoffs for the first time in a while. Brunson played bully ball, and they beat Cleveland, and they moved on. I know last year they lost to Indiana, and this year they lost to Indiana. They lost Indiana 2 times in a row. Indiana is their boogeyman, and Thibs is boogeyman. But at the same time, Thibs put respect back on the Knicks. Thibs put the Knicks back on the map. You saw what Cleveland did last year. They got rid of their head coach, and they got Kenny Atkinson. Is Cleveland going to fire Kenny Atkinson this year because they lost in the second round? They
fired J.B. Bickerstaff after they lost in the second round. What'd you say then?
But at that time, I was happy. But then this year, fast forward, and you get ran off the court. The grass isn't greener sometimes. That's the point I'm trying to make, Kyle. You're firing Thibs. The grass isn't greener sometimes. Unless, get a huge name. And it has to be that, right?
It's the biggest job in basketball.
It has to be. Like if they hire Johnny Bryant, the assistant coach from the Cleveland Cavaliers, I will say shame on them. I will. I will. I will say shame on them. But if they go out and get a big name, Kyle, fine. Then this works out. But as of right now, I say shame on the Knicks. I do.
My thinking, Tom Thibodeau as a head coach, yes, brought the Knicks back to relevancy. That is what Tom Thibodeau does. He is a rotation coach. He got the Bulls out from that MJ cloud that they couldn't escape in the mid-2000s, and he got them into a pretty good team. Now, the Bulls never recovered. Billy Donovan's still stuck there, the whole thing. They haven't been able to figure that out ever since he left. But the point is, he was a floor raiser. Went to Minnesota. He got to them to the first postseason they had in about 25 years. They moved on from him. They moved on to Chris Finch. They've had more success since they moved on. Or they had Saunders, and then they had Finch. But they moved on and eventually landed on Finch, and it's worked out. Tom Thibodeau goes to the Knicks. He gets them into a middling playoff team. A couple years go by, 5 years in. He gets them to a conference final, and they lose to a team that is probably better than them. Yes. Now, the one thing I would agree with you on is, you're going to ask yourself the question, did the Knicks overachieve or underachieve this year? They overachieved, probably. Maybe to a loose degree, they overachieved.
They weren't even a conversation heading into the playoffs. It was Boston and Cleveland. And they give credit to Indiana, too. They weren't even a topic of conversation. That's why we play the games.
Nope, that's why you play the games. they overachieved in some capacity this year. Going to 6 in the Eastern Conference Final, I think a Knicks fan would have signed up for that at the beginning of the year. But they made moves for Anthony Towns. Why'd they get rid of him? Why'd they get him in the mix?
Yeah,
was to get a championship. Why'd they get Jalen Brunson on a pay cut to get a championship? Why'd they move on from Tom Thibodeau to find their way to a championship? If you're under the impression that Tom Thibodeau is just, that genie in a bottle waiting to explode into a championship-winning year-after-year head coach, no. Tom Thibodeau has the same problems he has always had his whole entire career. He is an excellent regular season coach. The players like him. The players work hard under him. He is too stubborn for his own ways in a playoff series. That is the bottom line. That has been his Achilles heel his entire coaching career. And is it a knock in the regular season? No. But when all of a sudden you have to turn to Landry Shamet and you have to turn into the bench at the end of the Knicks series when all of a sudden Karl-Anthony Towns gets foul trouble, Jalen Brunson foul trouble. I know they had some moments where it looked good with it, but the point is these guys haven't played.
Yep.
And that's what hurt them. That's what got them burned at the end of the day is they did not have the depth because he did not trust the depth because he never trusts the depth. Kenny the Jet Smith said it. He wouldn't play 9 in a baseball game, and it's true. And whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing is one thing. But the way I look at it, if you're under the impression that Tom Thibodeau is, they're going to take the next step and he's waiting on winning a title, I think you're dead wrong. Because I don't think he's proved that to you. How many big playoff series has he won? 1? Maybe 2? What, he beat the Cavs in the first round 2 years ago?
Got him back on the map.
Yeah, when they were with the Bulls and they lost to the Sixers after Rose went down. And they beat the Nets that one year.
Post-Melo got the Knicks back on track,
That's
right?
it. That is the holy grail of what he did. But in terms of winning playoff series, he had that Celtics series, which was a great win. A big moment for the Knicks.
Big time.
We all know that. But we also know that the Celtics handed those first two games off.
They couldn't hit a shot.
Couldn't hit a shot. They gift-wrapped them the driver's seat in that series.
Now, Colin, I think it's a couple of things. Something we talked about all year with Thibs. The 6-man rotation, I think the Knicks had a big problem with that. And to your point,
he's too stubborn.
When you had to go to these players, they weren't ready. Next thing on my list, look at the teams in the NBA Finals. Look at the Oklahoma City Thunder and look at the Indiana Pacers. These are deep teams. These are teams with deep benches, and they could go 9 to 10 guys. I think the Knicks organization looks at that and says, all right, how do we make this happen? With Thibs, this isn't going to happen. We're never going to play 10 guys. We're never going to go deep.
The thing is, yes, to add on to that, the Pacers and the Thunder have the players. The Knicks probably didn't.
Right.
But even if they did have the players, Thibodeau wouldn't play.
But exactly. And I think this roster was constructed. Let's give some credit. This roster was constructed for Thibs. Brunson, Bridges, Hart, these are guys with high motor who could play 40 minutes a game. And then and my final thing, we're relying, and I understand why. I understand the why. I just don't think it's fair, and I think it's shameful.
Yeah, that's
and
the way
final,
to put it.
And the final thing, Colin, this is an incompetent organization. I think we all forget, unless they get a big name, Colin, and who's a big name? Unless they get a big name, this is shameful. It really is. If you get Johnny Bryant, if you get an assistant coach who we don't even know, I don't know. I can't get behind that. Thibs is a proven.
You got to get a proven. You got to get a proven head coach.
And isn't there something with sticking with it? Like, would it have been that bad to try it for one more year?
But then what?
To run it back
Brunson's
one more
another
year?
year older, and then Anthony Towns going to be 31. Then I get it, but this is a window. These windows are not necessarily going to play ball.
But like you look at the last 2 years and the sample size that there are 3 years that the Knicks have been in the playoffs. Every year they've gotten better. And that's probably what Thibs was saying to defend himself is give me more time, give me another this. But in the end of the day, I think a lot of it has to do with that 6-man rotation we talked about so much and the deep teams in the NBA final and Thibs refusing to adjust.
Well, the one thing about the Knicks getting better every year is they changed every year. They added players every year. They traded guys in and out. They were not afraid to get rid of Randall. They were not afraid to get rid of DiVincenzo. They were not afraid to go get Bridges. They were not afraid to go get Anunoby. They were not afraid to make moves. They got Brunson. They were not afraid to do this.
And people question the Brunson move
and
too.
At a certain point, what are you gonna do now? What are you gonna trade Towns? Are you just gonna keep how come the circus can only exist between the players, but it can't exist between the coach?
Sure. They need to get deeper. I know I sound like a broken record. I've said it 3 times in 5 minutes. But I think their big thing this offseason is to get deeper on the rotations.
But the bottom line is, if you're under the impression that Thibodeau was going to take him to the promised land, based off of what? Based off of what? This is the same guy who blew a 15-point lead at the end of game 1. And if you want to blame it on Anunoby and Anthony Towns for not hitting free throws, go right ahead. The Knicks blew that game. If that's not a coaching plunder, I don't know what is. Carlisle coached circles around him all series long. All series long. And I can't listen to the other side of that.
He did in every Doc Rivers, everybody. And I know it's not hard to do that with Doc Rivers lately. But Kyle, you understand the point. 3 teams Carlisle was able to coach circles around.
Right.
I think that was just a
Carlisle's
team.
a great coach. But the point is, he's not going to be the guy to out-coach the opposition. That's going to be it, right?
Well, the book's out on Thibodeau, right? The book's been out.
It's been out since he was in Minnesota.
The book's been out. So, and his refuse, and this goes back to what I said, the 6-man rotation, not a deep team, and the refusal to change.
This is about the coaching, too. This is the coaching. He's stubborn.
The refusal to change. The stubbornness.
He's
there
stubborn.
You go. You hit it. The refusal to change his ways.
He's stubborn. Tom Thibodeau relieved of his duties as head coach of the Knicks in a shocking move after they went 6 games deep in the Eastern Conference Final. We want to know, right move, wrong move? Where do the Knicks go from here? Do you agree with Tom Thibodeau's firing? 888-760-3776, the number to get into the program. That's 888-760-3776. Not only do I agree with this, I think the Knicks are going to be better off because of this, but the one thing I'll add to this that Mike was right on is the grass is not always greener on the other side. Let's look at the Milwaukee Bucks. They got rid of Budenholzer. That didn't work out. All of a sudden, the Suns, they had Monty Williams, won 60 games with him. They moved on. That didn't work out. Then they got the Frank Vogel and the Los Angeles Lakers. They moved on from him. That hasn't worked out. The Toronto Raptors moved on from Dwayne Casey. Then it worked out with Nick Nurse. And then they moved on from Nick Nurse, and then it hasn't worked out.
Exactly. And the NBA is musical chairs at the coaching position. Chairs.
The way I look at it is if Mike Malone can get fired with 3 games remaining in the regular season and we're on a 50-win team, and this is the same team that took OKC to 7. If he could get fired with 3 games in the regular season, I'm not shocked that this is open season for Thibodeau.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Don't you want to become that
Is it unfair? Yes.
Shameful. Yes. Say it.
I don't know if it's shameful. It's unfair.
First time in 25 years.
Do coaches deserve that type of leash? Probably not. But is it a cutthroat business for a reason? Yes.
Now, we just said Thibs and the Knicks overachieved. And the Knicks got to their first conference finals in 25 years. I ask you, why is he fired then?
He's fired because you do not see the end of the line with him.
Okay.
Is that it? Do you see the end of the line with Tom Thibodeau? Yes or no?
Unless depending on who they hire. For now, Kyle, right now, I don't know who they're going to hire yet. And I know you're speculating on maybe somebody. I don't know who they're going to hire. Until they do, this is shameful in my eyes. And if it is Johnny Bryant, listen, Johnny Bryant is a Cleveland Cavalier. I love him. But at the same time,
the associate head coach of the Cavs.
If it is Johnny Bryant, I don't agree with it. I don't. I'm sorry. Unless you get a huge name, I don't agree with this. Unless you already have someone grandfathered in to come in and step in and be the coach who's a big splash name, I think this is
Do people have the
shameful.
wrong idea of what Thibodeau is? Do people have the wrong idea that this is some championship-winning head coach? This guy's an under five.
First time in 25 years, though.
Hey, hold on. He's won under 50% of his playoff games in his career. And he's had good teams. He's coached MVPs. And he won under 50% of his playoff games.
We're not talking about the Celtics. We're talking about the Knicks, a team that has been the definition of incompetence in the playoffs for 25 years.
Fine. And he did it to Minnesota. What did Minnesota do? They were not afraid to move on from him. Then we started to struggle with Minnesota. He started not resonating with the players. I agree with you on the fact that they need to get somebody that eases the players' tension almost immediately. You can't go get somebody and then a guy trying to rekindle the locker room. You need a guy whose voice precedes him walking in the door.
They like playing for him. Brunson liked playing for the guy. Josh Hart, all these guys. Cat. It's a shakeup. That's a shakeup with the players right now, I guarantee it.
Unless they get somebody to shut them up. Believe it or not, I have an idea. We'll get to that after the break. First of all, 888-760-3776, the number to get into the program. Let's go to Ernie in Boynton Beach, joining us now on Russo and Rizzo. Ernie, welcome in. What's your thoughts here as a Knick guy?
Well, I'll take it as it is the way it looks. It was written on the wall. I mean, his past speaks for itself. You said it. Minnesota, Chicago. He drains the life of the players. He totally runs them down. He rides them all the way to the ground. He doesn't use rookies. He doesn't use his bench. Come on, this was going to happen. I said it when the first 2 games were lost in the first series. Why? Because he didn't know how to coach. He didn't know who to put in. Why? Because he didn't know what he was going to get out of him. Why? Because he didn't use him in the regular season. Why didn't he use him in the regular season? Why? Why? This is the day and age of using your entire staff. You have how many people in this? How many people is it? 12, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, it's 12,
12,
15.
Yep,
Something like that.
yep.
12. And how deep are these guys going? That right now, the 2 teams that are in the finals, what are they rotating? They're rotating 10 to 11 people. Yeah. So it's a shift. It's not just something that's happening to the Knicks. This is a shift. If you don't have a starting 5 and a complimentary bench, you're not going to win it.
Now, Ernie,
that's simple, and it's right. Go ahead,
Ernie. If I could push back a little bit, first time in 25 years you've been to a conference final and you ran the guy out of the door.
Correct.
You're okay with that. You're okay with this.
Yes. And guess what? We're not. We're not going to get any higher. We were not going to go any higher than what we saw right now. And I'm glad that they didn't go. Colin, you're right. They saw what they got, and that's it. That's it. Because the only way he was going to save his job was by winning it. Let's be honest here.
That's it. The only way the NBA Finals would have done it. The Finals would have done it.
Now, but even the likes of Stephen A. Smith agree.
Good call. Good call.
Thank you, Ernie. Now, I will say Stephen A. was on First Take about 2 weeks ago, and they asked him this question about Thibodeau. And Stephen A. said no because I think the Boston series saved him.
Yeah, I was under the same impression.
Not even Stephen A., who's closer to the Knicks than anybody we know, thought Thibodeau was going to get fired.
Now you got to wonder who made this call. Did James Dolan make this call as the owner? Did Leon Rose, who was the president since 2020, make this call? Who was a Thibodeau guy? Did he make this call? Was it in unison? Did they agree? Was it ownership down? That's the real question now. 888-760-3776. Cologne in New Jersey joins Russo and Rizzo. Cologne, welcome in. What do you got?
Hey, guys. I just Thibodeau, I am shocked. I wanted him to come back. I think he earned the right to come back, running back another year. But as a Knicks fan, when the season started, they were one of the favorites to make it to the conference final. And as the year went along, they could not be a good team. And there was rumors that if he lose to Detroit, he would get fired. And also on March 13th, there's a report that Mikal Bridges complained about playing too many minutes, and then they won that game against Portland Trail Blazers, and Mikal hit like a 3-pointer in overtime to win the game,
Right.
So my point being is, I think this writing was before, they made up their mind before they made the playoffs that he wasn't coming back because.
But Cologne, you gotta take into consideration the success or the lack thereof if you're considering a title or bust. You got to take that into consideration whether you're going to move on from this guy or not in the postseason. You're not going to make this decision 2 months before the fact.
I think listen. What did they say when Thibodeau first got here? They said that he's a good guy. He was a good coach, good defense, and he'll wear out his welcome in 5 years. How long has it been? I think it's been like 5 years.
It's been 5 years. Yes.
He wore out his welcome. He wore out his welcome. That's when you hired him. That's when they said what's going to happen. They wore out his welcome. All I'm saying is I think they made up their mind before the season started that they were not going to bring him back. And then beating the Celtics and being the favorite to beat the Pacers, I think that also went against them unless they made this move.
Appreciate the call, Cologne. Thank you for chiming in. 888-760-3776. Tom Thibodeau relieved of duties as head coach of the New York Knicks. Shams Charania of ESPN said that, quote, his phone's blown up with the NBA executives. Almost everybody in the league is stunned. But what is this Knick job opening up to? It is the most coveted job in basketball. People want to start going, well, what about Tom Thibodeau? The short leash. If the Knicks call, you're answering. It doesn't matter who it is. Because the Laker job did the same thing last year. The Lakers could have gotten anybody they wanted. I know Dan Hurley turned it down. That was just a bargaining chip. They could have gotten the Knicks can get anybody they want here.